From a mannequin head to a mop to even a mentally challenged wrestler. These are gimmicks that were absolutely insane but somehow got over, and the backstories behind them. Starting with one of the most brilliantly stupid ideas in recent memory. The Miz gets a stunt double whose entire job is to mimic everything he does in the ring from the outside. Yeah, it sounds goofy as hell, but somehow it worked. And how?
Just great chemistry. Really, Miz and I had such great chemistry, and it was so just easy. Like he would do his thing, and he was so gracious enough with me. And neither of us were selfish. We were all working for the cause, which I think that's why we were kind of like build off of that synergy and turn it into something special. And if it wasn't for Miz, there'd be no Mizdow, as we all know. So
that synergy turned them into one of the most over acts in the entire company. I mean, fans went crazy for Mizdow, to the point where the stunt double became more popular than the Miz himself. And WWE had no choice but to acknowledge it. They not only won the Tag Team Championships at Survivor Series 2014, but that December, they took home a Slammy for LOL Moment of the Year, solidifying Mizdow as one of the most uniquely successful gimmicks in wrestling history. Now this act may have been funny, but this next gimmick was downright unsettling. Yeah, we're talking about the Boogeyman.
I wanted the character to be completely out of the box. I didn't want to walk out on stage, I wanted to crawl out on stage. I wanted to do something, I wanted to leave a legacy, I want to leave an impression upon the world, you know, the WWE nation, that, hey, this guy's different, what is he gonna do? You know, what's the next? And when people say, I mean, maybe not be the greatest wrestler, but I want to keep you on edge. I want to keep you entertained with the fact that, you know, hey, you know, this is what it's all about.
The Boogeyman wasn't there to have 5-star classics. He was there to create spectacle, for fear theater. From the clock smashing to the unsettling movements, the whole eating worms thing, it was all designed to keep kids on edge and adults entertained. And even though the gimmick was hokey, especially during a time where most wrestlers were rooted in reality, the Boogeyman character got over big. And even years later, he still pops up for Halloween content and special appearances, carving out a legacy not by being the greatest wrestler, but by being unapologetically weird and absolutely unforgettable. And look, a guy that eats worms is weird, but what about a wrestler who convinced everyone he was an actual superhero? Well, have no fear, the Hurricane is here. See, the Hurricane is one of my favorite examples of a gimmick that shouldn't have worked because it started completely by accident.
Like, I was just Hurricane Helms, as basically I was Sugar Shane Helms, but just called me Hurricane Helms for a while. That lasted for a couple months or so, whatever. But then, you know, I did a backstage skit with Steve Austin, and all I was told was that he might mention the tattoo. We didn't know what. I didn't talk to Steve about it. You know, this was a different era where they didn't write every fucking thing down. It's like, and I didn't know what I was going to say, you know, because I didn't know what Steve was going to say. And Steve, that's Steve Austin. He can say whatever the fuck he wants. You know, me on the other hand, I'm just happy to be here. I just got my name approved. Right. You know, I'm just thrilled to have a job. You know, so I didn't know what I was going to say. Steve started asking me about the tattoo, the Green Lantern tattoo, and I started talking about the Green Lantern like it was a real person for no reason whatsoever. I was like, yeah, he knocked Superman out with one punch, man. And Deborah started laughing, and then Steve reacted off of that, and it was like nothing it wasn't planned at all. It just worked.
And that unplanned moment gave Helms something priceless, a character voice. See, the Hurricane wasn't winking at the audience saying, "Isn't this silly?" He genuinely believed he was a superhero, and that earnestness combined with real ring talent made the Hurricane feel authentic instead of cringe. So fans grew to love him so much that he even managed to upset one of the GOATs, pinning The Rock on Monday Night Raw with a little help from the man who helped birth the gimmick, Steve Austin. But here's where things get really interesting, because the Hurricane was so over that WWE pitched him on pairing up with another wrestler, superhero in training, Rosie. And at first, Helms wasn't crazy about the idea.
But you know, you don't want two Stone Colds, you don't want two Undertakers. So when you do that, you got to be careful about not like watering yourself down to a degree. So when I had Rosie at first, like that one actually concerned me at first because I'd already done that with Molly. I turned Molly from Molly Holly into Mighty Molly. So when the Rosie thing was pitched to me, you know, I wasn't sure at first, but I like Maddie so much as a friend. Because I'd worked with him when he was 3 Minute Warning a couple of times, and then when he was managed by Teddy Long. I think they were still doing a White Boy Challenge or something like that of that nature. Him and Rodney Mack, and I worked with him then too, and we got along really well. So.
But despite the sheer stupidity of a gimmick that acronymed Rosie as shit, the pairing paid off. Fans are into it, and eventually The Hurricane and Rosie even won the WWE Tag Team Championships at Backlash 2005, elevating an unlikely superhero comedy act into credible champions. Now, superhero gimmicks are one thing, but this next character would never get over today, because the WWE wouldn't dare try it again. Yeah, we're talking about the idiot savant of wrestling, Eugene.
What about a wrestler that might not be the most social, can't really put a square peg in a square hole, might not be able to tie his shoes, but when the bell rings, he's flawless at professional wrestling because he's watched it his whole life. He's a fan of professional wrestling. So I pitched that out, the idiot savant of wrestling. And Vince was standing there rubbing his chin. The Rain Man of wrestling, ha ha ha. At that point, Stone Cold Steve Austin walked into Vince's office. And Vince goes, Steve, have you ever seen this guy wrestle? Austin looks at me and goes, no, I don't think I have. Well, I said, the Nightmare Danny Davis trained me. Because I knew that Danny Davis and Steve Austin had met and become friends when they both wrestled in Dallas. And Austin goes, well, he's probably one of the best. And right then and there, that was the vote of confidence. I feel that Vince goes, well, great, we'll start on Monday.
I'm actually amazed at how great of a pitch Nick Dinsmore made, and honestly, it's a very well thought out character. In fact, another aspect of the Eugene character that never saw the light of day was that he knew every fact and stat that there was to know about wrestling. But instead of exploring the deeper side of this gimmick, WWE kept it very surface level. And perhaps that's what makes this character feel so taboo. But hey, times were different 20 years ago. A lot of people weren't as bothered by someone pretending to be mentally challenged, and those that were just didn't watch or support the show. Regardless, this character got over in a big way. I mean, within months of Eugene's debut, he was already involved in major programs, facing Triple H at SummerSlam, and even winning the Tag Team Championships with William Regal. So a character that could have been a disaster ended up becoming a legitimate part of the roster. Now look, Eugene worked because there was psychology behind it. The savant angle gave it depth. But Al Snow, he took abnormal psychology to a whole different level by talking to a damn mannequin head.
One night I worked with Great Sasuke, and at the arena we came back, and that, you know, they do that part where they made the Mother's Day parade floats on the other side of the building, and I happened to pick up a styrofoam head, and I remembered I was reading a book on abnormal psychology, and there was a lady in there who had paranoid schizophrenia with a transference disorder, meaning that she thought she heard voices from like this light, and that the light was crazy, not her. So I thought, oh, I'll start carrying this to the ring. And I remembered, you know, Mick fooling around because he had a styrofoam head to hold his Mankind mask, and it was Bob, Holly, and Sid Vicious that were in the car. We were out in California, and we were in the back seat, and Midian had thrown up the styrofoam head, and it caught in the ceiling fan blades, I think in Montreal, actually, in the dressing room. It kind of clipped its mouth, and he was like fish hooking it and acting like he was going to have sex with it in the room, and called it Elaine. And that was, you know, the combination of all those things kind of made me go, hey, you know what? I'm going to take this to the ring and treat it like it's a real person, and like they're talking to me, and like they're crazy and I'm not. And it just kept working. People kept getting with it. And then all of a sudden, Paul was on board, and he was like, you know, you're going to be the next great cult babyface. I'm like, crazy? I'm a heel. I'm a psychopath talking to a head.
Yeah, I don't understand why people loved a crazy guy talking to a head either, Al, but they did, and in a massive way. ECW crowds started bringing their own mannequin heads to shows, waving them in the air and chanting head, head, head. And when WWE signed him, they went all in on that double entendre. Because what does everybody want? Head became one of the most risque and memorable entrance chants of the entire Attitude Era. Man, a styrofoam head got more over than most actual wrestlers on the roster. That is just ridiculous. But not as ridiculous as Perry Saturn's gimmick, a dude that was in an intimate relationship with a mop.
The mop gimmick, Moppy. How'd that come about?
I have no idea. It got over. I have no idea. I hated it, but it got over. At the time, you know, I was just, like I said, I was so fucked up all the time and just miserable anyways, and I thought it was stupid, and that's another thing I was wrong about. The fans loved that stuff.
Ben Hitchens from Melbourne asks, who came up with it? Who approaches you with that at the time?
I think Vince. I think it was Vince. And when Vince has an idea, you're doing the idea.
Perry Saturn was a legitimate tough guy, a hard-nosed, jacked wrestler who looked like he could break you in half. And apparently, Vince thought that was all the more reason to make him fall in love with a piece of cleaning equipment. But why? Well, Perry may have claimed he had no idea why this gimmick happened, but rumors have it that it was a punishment given to him for taking liberties on a jobber mid-match. Fortunately for him though, even as a joke meant to humiliate him, the gimmick took off. Fans were captivated by Moppy, cheering for it like it was a real character, and the angle got so over that WWE built an entire storyline that ended with Raven murdering Moppy by throwing him into a wood chipper. I can't believe that actually happened. And I can't believe this final gimmick worked either, because we gotta close with the ultimate parody that refused to die, Gillberg.
Talking to Paul Bear one night, and I was telling him what I was doing on the Independence. I did the Undertaker. I did Stone Old Steve Austin, which was great. I took pool swimmies and made big giant braces and walked out with a walker and everything. And I was giving the wrong finger and everything. I was all old. And then I did Gillberg. And he goes, what? And him and Kane were there, and he goes, Gillberg? And I said, yeah. And then after a while, he goes, oh, Dwayne Gill, I think you might have something there, boy. At night, I walked back and forth past him and Kane would go, Gillberg, Gillberg. So I started going, and they were seeing what I do, and they were laughing their ass off, right?
Right.
Then catering, I was getting catering. Yeah, you get your food and everything, and you walk along. Well, all the boys in there started going, Gillberg, Gillberg. And I snapped my tray down, and I went, so snapped. They cracked up like hell, man. And I thought that was it.
Right.
So I came home after TVs, and it was Wednesday, and I got a phone call from the office. And I was like, yeah. They said, Dwayne, you hear you do this Gillberg thing? And I'm like, yeah. And they go, well, we want you to do it. And I said, hold on. They said, what? I said, man, I just won the light heavyweight title, man. I don't want to lose it. And they go, no. That's the beauty of it. You're going to wrestle all heavyweights. And the count be 0-1, 0-2, 0-3, but I still remained the champ. That's the cheap part about it.
Yeah, so while WCW had Goldberg and his undefeated streak, WWE fought back with Gillberg and his winless streak. And somehow, Gillberg became WWE's longest reigning light heavyweight champion ever. 445 days with that belt without winning a single match. Utterly stupid, but massively over. And the gimmick never died either, because Gillberg returned for the 2011 Royal Rumble, he showed up at Raw 1000 in 2012, he made an appearance on Old School Raw in 2014, Goldberg came and went multiple times, but Gillberg lives forever. I'm Tyler, this has been Tales of the Turnbuckle. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and check out this video right here if you want to know what the greatest power couple in WWE history is. Is it Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins, or has CM Punk and AJ Lee surpassed them? And what about Macho Man and Miss Elizabeth? They gotta be up there too, right? Well, click to find out.